It's the season of gaming. We say that every season, but this time I mean it. Splatoon 3, God of War 2, Sonic Frontiers, Bayonetta 3, Overwatch, Goat Simulator 3, apparently they made a second one, I don't know. None of that is really relevant because this year I've had my eyes set on a different title. See, the first Slime Rancher holds a very special place in my heart. It was one of the first games I ever got on Steam, and it taught me a great many things like survival, resource management, gambling, and the oppressive reign of capitalism on the working class. So when Slime Rancher 2 got announced last year, I was pretty hyped, and when it came out last week, well, I pretty much bought it immediately. And now I'm here, talking about it. So hi, it's me. Welcome to a different style of content today. This one's kind of a review, kind of a discussion, I guess. It doesn't really matter that much, labels aren't important, so let's just get to it. Slime Rancher, what is it? Well, developed by Monami Park, it came onto Steam in January of 2016, where Let's Players the world over played it on their channels, which gave the game quite a huge boost in attention. It's probably how a huge amount of people, myself included, found the game and why they even bought it in the first place. It worked under that tried and true genre of games where you basically work a full-time job, but with a fantastical twist. You own a farm on an alien planet where the primary life forms are slimes, coming in many different shapes and sizes. You bring these slimes back, feed them, sell their substances, and use that money to upgrade and expand. It's an incredibly simple system, but one that is infinitely enhanced by how you experience it. Okay, let me explain because that sounded a bit pretentious. Slime Rancher really makes you feel like a Slime Rancher. By limiting your perspective to just a first-person view and keeping your movement down to just your WASD keys and your stamina bar, it makes what is a really simple gameplay loop actually feel like you're managing a real farm, even though you're actually on your computer losing it to virtual blobs. That's why management in Slime Rancher has always been so fun, because you feel like you are physically working towards progress instead of, say, just clicking a button and looking at numbers on a screen. You also spend a large chunk of your time outside of your farm, exploring the vast world of the range, seeing the sights, discovering new slime and food variants, and piecing together what happened to the previous inhabitants of the strange land you now call home. All of these elements, the adventure, the world, the management, and the strangely serene chaos that emerges from all of it, is what made Slime Rancher one of the most well-renowned indie games of recent memory. And it's also what makes Slime Rancher 2 an amazing game, because it's kind of a reskin. Put your pitchforks down, my take is more nuanced than that. Somewhat. Okay, first of all, I am obviously aware that Slime Rancher 2 is still in early access, and it will probably change a lot between now and its full launch. However, outside of a couple changes like having to manually collect resources and needing materials to upgrade your equipment, there hasn't really been any gameplay changes introduced between this game and the original. Which is slightly concerning since looking back at Slime Rancher's time in early access, the only update that changed up the gameplay was the Slime Science update, which added gadgets that you could use primarily just for automation and convenience. And so while it's not impossible that Slime Rancher 2 will see some huge gameplay updates and changes before its full release, there is still the very real possibility that Slime Rancher 2 is really just gonna be Slime Rancher 2. And I don't want to flat out say that that's a bad thing, because like I mentioned, Slime Rancher is great and more of that is awesome, but at the same time, this is being advertised as a whole new game when it feels like DLC. And that's a sentiment that has begun to spread across players. Like, you get a whole new world to explore, with both new and returning slimes scattered about, but at the end of the day, playing through it is really just like discovering another biome in the original game, because other than improved graphics and an incredibly good looking new UI, this plays like the same game except you've paid another $26 for it. The precedent of sequels to indie games frankly doesn't really exist, yet. As the indie gaming genre has begun to come into its own, we're beginning to see more and more sequels being put into the works, but indie games are always going to be a lot harder to sell and make than a AAA game, which can afford to re-release the same thing over and over again, even if it sucked to begin with. That's why usually to create a successful continuation to an indie game property, studios kind of have to make bigger changes, whether that be adding more to the established gameplay loop or creating a whole new system entirely. So I guess what I'm saying is, I fear for Slime Rancher 2's future if Monomi Park doesn't add something big. I mean, they could of course still switch it up and knock it out of the park again, but making the game public now with no real promise in terms of gameplay changes is bold. In terms of potential suggestions, I'd look at what Subnautica Below Zero did. Both the original Subnautica and Slime Rancher have a solidly good system. In Subnautica, you explore, collect, craft, go deeper, explore more, and fend off deadly beasts of the deep. In Below Zero, yeah, a lot of what you do is the same. You explore, collect, craft, and die, but there's also other elements at play that makes the game feel different without completely revamping the whole system. Temperature is now something that the player has to worry about since the game takes place in a colder climate, and obviously most important of all, there's land now. And on land, I mean you do basically the same things, explore, collect, craft, well, you know, but it's become a completely new experience. I mean, you can't use the Y-axis anymore for one, and I think there's something about vibrations. I'll be honest, I still haven't gotten around to actually playing it, but my point stands. Below Zero offers a whole new experience on top of Subnautica instead of being Subnautica with a white coat of paint. And I think that's something Slime Rancher 2 could attempt as well. Keep the original systems, everything Slime Rancher about Slime Rancher is great, but add areas and environments that feel unique to Slime Rancher 2. I mean, the setup's the same as Below Zero. You used to be on this part of the world, now you're here. How does life differ between those two areas? Heck, I mean, just spitballing here, but you could add an underwater segment. It's already been established in the world that there is life living in the slime ocean, so give the player a way to explore it. That would be amazing. You could add dungeons at where the ruins are, natural disasters you have to shield yourself from. Give us more plots. Give Beatrix a gun. I think I got carried away there. Look, I love Slime Rancher, and I love Slime Rancher 2, but if you already own the original and were already on the edge about getting this, then as much as it pains me to say, you probably want to hold out and wait until it receives more updates. But I also don't want to disparage anyone who has already bought it. I don't personally regret getting this game. I mean, it looks beautiful, it's fun. Did I mention the UI is really good? But finding faults in some of your favorite properties is still important. Separating yourself from something you like is strangely a really difficult thing to do. Trust me, I used to be there. But criticism is a necessity, especially now while Slime Rancher 2 is still in early access. So if you really love this game and you hate me for bad-mouthing it a little, I'm sorry, but just chill. Because I'm gonna diss it a bit more.
Oh. Really?
TARR. Honestly, when I started writing this, I was really only going to talk about the whole reskin thing, but as I kept playing, I noticed some things. Right, but for those unaware, what is a TARR? Well, in Slime Rancher, you get to participate in crimes against bio-slimanity by creating Largo slimes, which happen when a slime eats a plort from another slime. However, when a Largo slime eats a third unique plort, they become TARR. I'm sorry, I'll stop. TARRs are zombie slimes. They cause mayhem and infect other slimes, turning them into more TARR, and can only be killed by being thrown into the ocean or getting shot by water. Now, here's the problem. There's too much TARR. I don't want to sound like a whiny little baby, no evil in my comfort game, but it's kind of ridiculous how often TARR appears when playing this game. Now, this problem doesn't break Slime Rancher, in fact, it's more of a nitpick, but I think mentioning it is important because, well, it did kind of hamper my game experience. You genuinely cannot go like 5 minutes outside of the conservatory without hearing the TARR music, turning around and seeing anywhere from 1 to 10 TARRs just basically destroying everything. Sometimes you'll stumble across a new zone and find out that there are already TARR in it. And true, sometimes it looks cool to dispatch them, but most of the time it takes what makes exploring in Slime Rancher so fun, taking in a new fantastical land and living amongst the slimes, and makes it feel stressful, and not the fun kind of stressful, the kind of stressful you're like, what, huh? And there is a reason it's like this. As you know, it only takes 3 types of unique plorts in order to turn a Largo slime into a TARR, but well, a lot of areas have 3 slimes, or more. So then that raises the question, why do slimes live in environments that are bad for them? And if it wasn't for me throwing these incredibly common TARR into the ocean, How did the slimes of this land even defend themselves? Nitpick, I know, but it does bother me a little, both from a gameplay and world building perspective. If I were to give suggestions, the harder route would be restructure where you put your slimes and change the landscape or AI a little so that slimes will be able to potentially enter zones they shouldn't be in, which can then create the opportunity for TARR to be created, which would still make them a potential threat, and teach the kids about the dangers of invasive species. Or you could add slimes that can combat TARR. Slimes that do damage already exist, so adding in a way for these slimes, or even other new or existing slimes, to hurt and kill TARR would be really interesting to see in the world, and give it more life, which would also be great to see. Just food for thought for any Monami Park developers out there. And for any non-Monami Park developers who are still here, consider liking and also subscribing. Yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Slime Rancher 2. If you haven't played the original Slime Rancher, then I do suggest you check it out, whether it be the original or the sequel. I think both are viable options to start with right now. I mentioned it in the beginning, but I'll say it again for clarity. I really love Slime Rancher. I do. Even if I criticize it in this video, I think looking critically at something you enjoy is always important. I also hope you enjoyed this little change of pace of content where I discuss things that aren't really depressing. All the eyes on this channel have been incredible. I appreciate it a lot, genuinely. But I know most of you subscribed for my other kinds of videos, so if you hated this, then well, feel free to leave, because I intend to make more. I talked about this a little bit in a community post, but no one reads those, so I think I'll put it on the record here, and I'll never mention it again, I promise. Stuff to analyze and teach a lesson about is kind of hard to come by, and I really don't want to rush that process. I really only want to talk about things I actually care about, so if I want to even keep a semblance of a presence on this platform, videos like these where I just talk about my opinion will also exist, because I have a lot of those. So do expect to still see some analysis and life lesson videos on this channel, but also expect just a whole bunch of other random stuff like this. But yeah, that's about it, so I'll see you soon. Bye!